to yet another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes Reborn.com, with me as your host, Chris, Audio Effects Supervisor McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me today to talk about the news that Joel Whist has joined the upcoming G.I. Joe Snake Eyes movie as the Visual Effects Supervisor is Justin, Never Leave Me Visually Unsupervised Bell. So without further ado, let's get stuck into watching into this news burst. News broke yesterday that Visual Effects Supervisor Joel Whist had been signed on to the upcoming G.I. Joe Snake Eyes movie. The Academy Award nominee has been involved in some impressive films in recent years, including Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, War for the Planet of the Apes, The BFG, and Watchmen. The list underlines the fact that Snake Eyes could very well turn out to be a visually striking film at the very least, and could indeed hint at a broader scale than just the focus on the classic kung fu style that has been discussed by the film's producers and writers in past interviews. With filming beginning in Vancouver next month, we can expect to hear a lot more about the remaining cast and crew hires as the weeks go on. In related news, Henry Golding also posted an image on his Instagram account wearing a waterproof jacket and a lift with the caption, "Ready for that Vancouver drizzle." Clearly this is a reference to the fact that he loves water sports. I'm kidding, that he will be heading to Vancouver, Canada for the filming of the Snake Eyes movie in just over a month's time. Getting in there rather early, Henry, and we couldn't be happier about that. Justin, starting with Joel Whist, are you happy that they've been able to get a visual effects supervisor with such good experience and many high-profile films under his belt?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think he's got a really good pedigree. I mean, I'll admit Dawn of Justice was not my favorite movie out there, but from a visual standpoint, It was very striking. It was,
yeah.
I mean, the effects were fantastic, and I think that's, certainly a feather in his cap. And Man of Steel, same sort of thing. And for whatever issues you might have had with the films, they always look really good. It sounds like he's been at least somewhat connected to Zack Snyder for a while, considering those two movies, and Watchmen, I believe Snyder also had something to do with. So he certainly has a lot of history and a lot of background and a lot of experience. And I'm a big fan of kind of the look and feel of some of the movies he's worked on. So I think this is great news.
Yeah, big fan of like the Planet of the Apes films, especially War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
which I thought was like a really like solid kind of movie as well, like on its own, not just out of that kind of trilogy of movies. But yeah, when you talk about Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, all that kind of stuff, I mean, again, yeah, you can have issues with the film, but yeah, you're right, they look fantastic. I had one issue, I think, with Batman vs Superman, and that was the end of it, like when it turned into 90s CGI, and we had Doomsday and stuff. I mean, that is a bit unnerving, but for the most part, I mean, everything else on that list is pretty solid. I mean, Watchmen looks incredible. The BFG was beautiful in the way it was, animated. What he's done on those films is quite impressive, so I'm looking forward to that. I mean, do you expect to see more than just the classic kung fu style movie with Snake Eyes, especially when you look at the films he's been involved in already? I mean, at least for the Cobra and G.I. Joe aspects of the film, right?
Oh yeah, it certainly seems like it. Yeah, it's almost a necessity at this point. There's going to have to be some sort of more elaborate, storylines interwoven between the typical, Snake Eyes history with, the martial arts focused sort of stuff. I mean, if Baroness is involved and if they've got a lot of these visual effects guys involved, then it certainly seems as if it's going to be a lot more than what we'd expected at first, possibly, which I think is a very cool thing.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they make the Joes and Cobra look. Like, I'm interested in that overall design aspect in general. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing something coming out in terms of the design of those particular factions, because I mean, I was excited because Snake Eyes, I think, was the first image they dropped before Rise of Cobra came out, and I remember that those production images, or not production images, but like photo shoot images of Snake Eyes in his gear, I think was my profile picture for like months, because I was so excited with Ray Park in all of the, in the costume and everything. And then slowly but surely they started dropping those posters, didn't they, of like the other Joes in their kind of black tactical gear. And I mean, I was still excited, but there was a worry, a concern that they all looked very monochrome. It was all very the same. And I mean, there was a uniformity aspect to it, but it did take away from some of the characters. I'm interested to see how they go about it this time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really hope that if they do have some sort of G.I. Joe and Cobra influence, that they try to go for a little bit more variety in some of the way the characters look. I mean, I don't know how much we'll see of the G.I. Joe team. I mean, it seems like we're going to see quite a bit of well, maybe not quite a bit, but we're going to certainly see, the seeds for Cobra starting to be sown. But yeah, I'd be really curious to see kind of how they approach that, if they do. I mean, in both films, really, not so much with Retaliation. Retaliation had a little bit more color, I think, when it came to the Cobra stuff specifically. I mean, Cobra Commander is black, and the soldiers were kind of gray urban camo, but then there was the red ninjas that were kind of involved as well. So there was some color variations.
Yeah.
But, with Rise of Cobra especially, I mean, it was basically everybody was in some sort of black armor of some kind.
And that camo kind of pants they all wore, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of grayish camo stuff. And then Retaliation, obviously, when the Joes were kind of in their gear, which wasn't much because they were on the run so much, it was all the same kind of desert camo sort of look. So
yeah,
it'd be nice if they could sort of add some variety and make them, take a little bit of the military edge out of it and add a little bit more of kind of the superhero comic sort of edge, which I know makes a lot of G.I. Joe fans kind of bristle.
I don't know though, because I think one of the reasons Joe is so big and popular is the characterization, is the individuality within each of those different characters. If everyone looked the same, it defeats that object, and you might as well, why bother having G.I. Joe when you can just have all those other shows and films and stuff that include military aspects. I just don't understand why you want to make G.I. Joe something it clearly isn't and never was really about.
Yeah, I mean, you're watching Retaliation, you're like, oh, look, there's Duke in his desert camo. Oh, look, there's Lady J in her desert camo. Oh, look, there's Flint in his desert camo. Using the same weapons, wearing the same uniforms as everybody else. The only thing that makes them different is just that they're being called by their code names. I mean, there was really nothing about the Lady J character in Retaliation that made her Lady J, besides the fact that they called her that. And the same with Flint. I mean, his parkour expertise was certainly not pulled from any of his history or anything. It was just the fact that they were called what they were called. I mean, if Flint had been called Falcon, he just would have been Falcon and nothing else would have been changed.
Probably would have actually suited his character a bit more as well.
Yeah, probably would have, yeah.
I think, I agree with you. I actually think that Rise of Cobra had more individuality than Retaliation did, because I think Retaliation went that full bore into full uniformity, didn't it? And I feel like, at least with Rise of Cobra, you had Breaker, who looked completely different to Heavy Duty. Obviously they were wearing similar color tones, but for the most part there was a lot of difference in that kind of in that character lineup.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, all very interesting talking points there. I mean, coming over to let's talk about Henry Golding's post as well. I mean, are you happy to see his preparations for the film?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's starting to become real now. He's actually shown up in Vancouver, or is getting ready to show up in Vancouver. I mean, stuff is actually happening now, so it's very, very cool.
It's a difficult life, isn't it? Oh, it's going to be raining. It's going to be raining.
Yeah.
I must make a giant umbrella out of all these millions of dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no sympathy for you getting drizzle on you, Mr. Golding.
I know, no kidding. Yeah.
But I'm very excited, and the more I see this, the more the excitement's going to be kind of fueled. It's funny because every post I seem to put out there, I feel like the general Joe community all have a similar kind of response. It's that kind of, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me type thing. So I understand that there's that trepidation towards this upcoming film, but at the same time, if you can't get excited for something like this, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
what's the point of living?
Yeah,
I'm not telling everyone to go kill themselves, by the way.
No, I get it. But really, yeah, it's you do wonder sometimes, not trying to cast any stones, but you're a fan of the property, but you're so completely unwilling to accept anything that's not shoehorned into the 80s nostalgia, the 5-year window when G.I. Joe was at its peak out of its 35, 40-year history. Or if you go back to the 12-inch figures, out of its over 50-year history, I mean, it's G.I. Joe is about a lot more than what happened between 1984 and 1987. So I just think people should really kind of open up their minds and try to be a little bit excited. I mean, the Michael Bay Transformers films are, that they're pretty awful. I would never voluntarily sit down and watch another one, but at the same time, look at where Transformers is now compared to where it was in not too long before the first movie hit. So get excited. I mean, we're going to be seeing Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and the Baroness and the Hardmaster and other characters, I'm sure, on the big screen in a little while. So, I mean, that's something to be excited about. Even if it doesn't completely 100% match your dream of what G.I. Joe should be, it's still pretty cool and still awesome to see some sort of relevance for the brand again somewhere other than online fan-run websites. So, I mean, that's only a good thing.
Did you just have a dig at yourself then? Other than you see on the GeneralsJoes Reborn.com.
Yeah, exactly. It's relevant in a real place, not a little isolated corner of the internet like General's Joe's.
And the Full Force Facebook page. No, that's well said. And I mean, we're going to keep you up to date with all of the happenings going on. We have, I think, a Baroness announcement very soon. They seem to be revealing things on Fridays, it appears. That's when most of the kind of news for these kind of cast and crew announcements are made. So possibly next week, or I'm hoping we hear about the Baroness within this week, because I'd love to get that one out of the way.
No
just
kidding.
Just because I'm desperate to see who they've got for it. I just want to know who they've gone with, and
exactly.
I'm so intrigued as to I think that will give us a really good idea of what to expect in terms of Cobra as well.
Yeah, I think you're right.
In any case, thank you, Justin, for jumping on. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Justin Bell. See you next time, and as always, Full Force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.